Some young Costa Rican basilisk lizards are looking for food. Basilisks have been nicknamed the Jesus Christ lizard. Why? This adult male, probably the father of the young lizards, can't tell us. Nor can this female, exclusive property of the territorial male. It has nothing to do with the feeding habits of the basilisk, which consists primarily of insects and berries. This predatory reptile will help reveal the secret as it stalks the young basilisk. The basilisk is called the Jesus Christ lizard because it can walk, well, really run on water. It bicycles its hind legs, and the tail becomes a counterweight. We can't know what the snake is thinking. Did it really want to eat the lizard, or did it just want to show?
All right, wow, wouldn't it be cool to do that? Man, right, kids? Put on a show like that? Weird question alert. Have you ever, tried walking on water? Come on. It's just me? I have, as a kid, right? I was fascinated by this miracle that we're looking at today. Can you imagine it? Just walking on water, just hanging out at the old public pool there, stepping out in the deep end, impressing friends and strangers alike. Wow, who's that guy? And then casually, I'd get on the other side, grab a little washcloth out of my back pocket, a little small one, just kind of dab the bottom of my feet and, kind of be all smug about it. Boy, it's chillier than I thought it'd be, That's what I wanted, right? And so I'd pray. I did this. I prayed. I said, Lord, man, this would be cool. And I'd step out and, I sank. Never worked. Now, I'll admit that I never wore street clothes, right? And I never made an announcement ahead of time, like, hey, everyone, gather around me. I'm going to walk on water now. No, I never did that. Why? Probably because deep down, I knew that it would never work. I always loved this story as a kid. And now, knowing a little bit more about it as an adult, I find it to be all the more wonderful. Let's reconstruct it a bit this morning. Now, I think it's very cool to know that 3 out of the 4 gospel writers tell the story. They each tell the same story, but they offer different perspectives and detail. For example, in Matthew's version, he lets us know that Peter got out of the boat and tried a little water walking himself. Awesome element in the story, but I'm going to leave that part of it for another day. But if you were here last week, Pastor Matzek gave an awesome message about Jesus' miracle of the feeding of the at least 5,000. Now, directly after that miracle, John records that after the people saw the miraculous sign Jesus did, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who came into the world. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. So, Jesus is up on a mountain grabbing some solitude. The disciples have been sent on ahead. Where are they? We know. They're in a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. It has been a tough night for the boys, for they are battling a storm. And it is a fierce storm. Matthew 14:24 says that the boat was buffeted by the wind and the waves. And that always makes me smile. Buffeted. Because it kind of sounds nice. Like after church today, I'm going to get on my couch and kind of watch some football and be buffeted with some pillows. It's going to be awesome. No, that's not buffeted. Buffeted means pounded. That's the word, pounded. The 12 are getting battered by the storm. They are knocked about repeatedly. That's buffeted. And get this, Mark tells us something very interesting, and it's this, that Jesus, up on the mountain, saw the disciples in the dark, miles away, straining at the oars. That's cool. Jesus watches. He had not forgotten. He is not too busy to think of them. All the time the disciples are pulling at the oars and being buffeted, Jesus' loving look was upon them. Point, yes, Jesus is watching you. Jesus is watching you in the midst of your storm. He knows exactly. When we are up against it, Jesus watches, but he does not promise to make things easy for us. He allows us to be buffeted. You sports parents, you know how this works. You watch your son, your daughter in some football, soccer, wrestling match. You watch your child's efforts. Now, you can't play the game for them. You allow them to be in this contest, but you are there. You are watching. They fall down. They do something good. They get back up. They make some errors. They win some. They lose some. But always, always you are proud of them because they are yours. And you are watching on in love. See, we live life with Jesus' loving eye upon us in our situation. Boy, I did that a couple weeks ago with my daughter, Janie. She's 22 now, almost 23. But always my little girl. You older dads, you get that deal, right? Well, she's in Orlando doing the Disney internship thing. And of course, here comes Hurricane Irma. And let me tell you what the old dad was doing all night long. I could not go to sleep that night. What was I doing? I was watching that Weather Channel, man, praying all throughout the night until I knew, it's good. I was watching with an incredibly vested interest in what was going on. That is how Jesus is watching you. He does not watch with cool detachment. Oh, yeah, it's okay. No, and here's the beautiful thing, too. While I could not come to my child's rescue that night, Jesus can, and Jesus does. He offers help. The question is, do we take the help? A lot of times we want him to help, but we don't like the way he goes about it. I'll give you one example. I think being in worship is really helpful. That's not just me, that's him. That's Jesus. Worship, it will be very helpful. And we go, we want you to come some other way. Something a little more dramatic. Not like this, Lord's Supper, pastor. Listen. We want something else, Jesus. Jesus offers help. Many times we don't take it. Many times we don't even recognize him. I'll tell you what, though, if you seek him, it's a guarantee you'll find him. Just listen to this great little chunk. 2 Chronicles 15:2. The Lord is with you when you are with him. Kind of sounds a little Jedi there, but I like it anyway. The Lord is with you when you are with him. So simple, so profound. If you seek him, he will be found by you. Whoa. So truly Jesus comes to us, but often we're not seeking, and nor do we recognize him. Now, somewhere between 3 and 6 in the morning, just when the disciples are, they're spent, they're exhausted, they're all but done for, Jesus comes. But when the disciples saw Jesus coming, they freaked. The sight of Jesus approaching terrified the disciples. Why? Well, Matthew tells us because they didn't recognize him. They thought Jesus was a ghost. Zoinks! Like, hey, Scoob, let's get out of here, man. However, Jesus speaks assuring words. He said, "It is I, don't be afraid." And when the disciples heard Jesus' words, they were convinced, and they took him into the boat. And with that, John tells us that the storm stopped, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. One moment they are in the middle of the storm, raging waters, buffeted about, and the next thing, Jesus is with them. The storm is silenced, and they're safe on shore. The end. That's the end of the sermon. You know better. All right, 7-minute sermon, no way, that'd be a miracle. That would be like, now you're like, that's not the case. Of course not. Why? I've got a good reason. And it's because I failed to point out the sign. Remember John was always talking about Jesus' miracles or signs. And this one is a biggie. It's loud and it's clear. Let's paddle back to the middle of the storm for a moment. This is interesting. I'm going to quote from an Old Testament commentary by Christopher Barth. It writes, in the Hebrew mythos, the sea is often symbolic of chaos, even evil. A roaring sea, especially so. This symbolism informed or perhaps began with the Old Testament creation account of land being separated from the water, which is representative of God bringing something solid, something good out of and away from something deadly and chaotic. Now, the Jews were not animists, They didn't believe that the sea itself was evil, that water was evil. But the sea was a powerful symbol in ancient Hebrew culture that represented chaos. That's why, for instance, the dragons in Revelation, right? They come up out of the water. The disciples are in a chaotic situation. Then Jesus comes. He is miraculously walking on water. But as mentioned, this is more than just a neat trick. Jesus isn't doing this simply to demonstrate physical power. There's more to it than that. He is in it, right? But he's above it. Jesus demonstrates that he is in control of the chaos and that he is God. That's what the sign says. But it's a sign that's one that's more for the ears than the eyes. It's Jesus' words. It is I. Do not be afraid. Yes, that's what he said. Kind of. You see, there's a big time technicality in translation that must be pointed out, because otherwise we English readers or hearers, we might miss the sign. He literally said, courage, I am. And that's big. Because I am is more than an expression. It is a name. The Old Testament tells us that that's the personal name God gave to his people to call him. Yahweh, which is translated, I am who I am. It is an all-encompassing name for the eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-capable, infinite, almighty, the great I am God. That's his name. I am. Don't wear it out. Remember when God spoke to Moses, right, from the burning bush? Remember that story? And Moses says, when they ask me who gave me this info or who sent me, what am I supposed to tell them? Burning bush. And God answered, tell them I am who I am. Tell them I am sent you. So Jesus walks on water and announces, courage, I am. And John will continue to connect the dots throughout the gospel, highlighting Jesus' I am declarations. John 6:35, I am the bread of life. John 8:12, I am the light of the world. John 10:19, 9, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. John 10:14, I am the good shepherd. And I can go on and on and on and on because John goes on and on and on and on because Jesus goes on and on and on and on. I am the true vine. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's almost like Jesus is trying to tell us something. He is. Jesus is saying that he is God. Now get this. The primary point behind this miracle is not one of physical rescue. Yes, Jesus demonstrates that he has power over the wind and the waves and nature itself, but it is more than that. There is always more to the miracle than just the miracle itself. He is demonstrating power over evil, over chaos, over sin. Jesus is the promised Messiah, the Savior of God's people. Jesus is saying, I am God. Well, friends, here's the question. What are we going to make of a claim like that? C.S. Lewis said there's only three options if you take Jesus serious. If you take that claim seriously, when someone says, I am God, in this case, Jesus is saying, I am God, there's three. If you take that seriously, there's three options on the table. The carpenter from Nazareth is saying he's God. Okay, three choices regarding Jesus. One, he's a crazy person who only thinks he's God. He's out of his mind. That's one choice. Or he is a deceiver. He is a trickster. He is a con man. He is a cult leader. That's the second one. Or he is who he says he is. He is the great I am. Those are the choices. Lunatic, liar, or Lord. What say you? Now, admittedly, I can't read your hearts, but I think I know your answer. And that's Jesus is Lord. He is who he says he is. Truly, he is the Son of God. Now, why do I think that about you? Well, answer, because you're here. You're doing what disciples of Jesus do. They worship him. Check it out. Matthew records that when they, Jesus and the rescued Peter, when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down, and those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. That's our response too. See, we're gathered together in this boat today. Each of us buffeted in personal storms, strife, but we're here. Be getting pounded a little bit, but you're here. And by being here, you're making a statement. Just by being here. There's so many other things to do with your time, but you had to prioritize. And there was had to do some math or some scheduling, your schedule, your kids' schedule, the needs. There's so many things that need to get done, I know. So many options on the table that are available to you. But you're here. You came to worship Jesus, the great I am. We've come to worship, to embrace the truth. We live in a windy world, the howling wind at times. You and I need to be reminded of the truth of who we are, who God is, more importantly, who we are in God's eyes, That God so loved you that he came to live a perfect life in your place, because you and I certainly cannot measure up to perfection. You sin, I sin, we sin. I am has taken away your sin by dying your death on the cross, only to take life up again, assuring that all who believe in him will not drown, but will be brought safely to shore. That's the gospel. You hear it every week, and we need to hear it every week. The gospel, the gospel, the gospel. And when we come to grips with the gospel, when we get the gospel, I mean really get it, then it's the only thing we can do. We can't help but worship. If you get the gospel, you can't help but worship. You wake up, I got air in my lungs. I got to go and worship. Boom. I mean, that's when you get the gospel, it leads us into worship because all we're doing is thanking him and singing his praises and reflecting on what he has done. And our response is worship. He is the great I am, worthy of our worship. And as we worship consistently through the years, week in, week out, the waves, guess what? They get smaller and God gets bigger. It's true. Because worship expands our capacity to experience and to know God better. And I'm sorry, but I got to reference C.S. Lewis again, twice in one sermon. But here it is. This time from the story of Prince Caspian, my favorite in the Narnia series. There's this scene when one of the children comes up to Aslan, and if you don't know, he's the lion, who is the Christ figure in the Narnia stories. And after some time of being away, they meet, and the girl says to Aslan, she says, "You're bigger." And he replies, "That's because you're older, little one." And she says, "It's not because you are." "I am not," said Aslan. "But every year you grow, you will find me bigger." So it is with us and God. Every year we grow, we find him bigger and more wonderful and more great and more capable. We trust him more. God is who he says he is, and that's fine. That's great. We believe it, We don't worry as much as we continue. That's why the miracle of Jesus walking on water, I just first glance, it's like, yeah, cool. But man, what it does is it leads us into worship. It leads us into worship that Jesus is the great I am. He is who he says he is. And it's a wonderful thing to worship again and again and again, to come and be loved. And to be forgiven. That's our greatest need. To be forgiven. He takes care of that every week in, week out. We come and we perceive again, and we declare with our lips the vastness, the worthiness, the greatness of our God who saves, the God who's with us. And basically, it's seeking him out. That's what we do here. We're seeking him. Right? If you seek me, you'll find me. If you don't seek me, you won't find me. Seek him. Seeking, and he finding us where we are. It's being with him, for an hour, for a time, formally now I'm talking, together as the body of believers, as disciples, to rest and to be reminded that we're not God. We don't have to worry so much about being God, fixing everything and everyone else's problems. We don't have to fix everyone's problems. No, we just come, we find out we're not God, that there is something bigger than us. We worship each time, each week. It's kind of like the big reset button. Reset. And we go through the week and it gets crazy. And we stress and freak and come back and it's like, whoop. Okay, here we go. And that's why it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing. It's seeking him. He finding us where we are. It's being with him. To be reminded, to be loved. It's our time to push the reset button. And it basically define reality. That's what define reality. That I'm a sinner. I blew it all during the week. Things I thought, things I said, snippy things. Anger. What's that all about? Sadness, like I got the weight of the world on my shoulder. Stuff like that. You ever do that? Poor me, poor little old me, all that. Come on. Man, let me tell you. I just spent a week with Ugandan pastors. Boy, do I feel like a jerk. These guys are bicycling 50 miles to get to church and all that stuff, and they don't get paid. Wow. Wow. So I need to come to church, at least to worship, to confess my sins, get rid of that, get rid of it. Yuck. Take it, Jesus. Thank you. And he forgives. I'm saved by his grace. You and I are in his care. We're heading safe to shore. I have Christ. I am his. He is God. He is in control. He is watching. He is helping. He is saving. My storm is nothing for him. He is very big. Jesus' words make all the difference. Take his words to heart. Courage. I am. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. They will not sweep over you. Fear not. I have created you. I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name, and you are mine. Courage. I am. Amen. And may God's grace and that peace that no one can understand because it surpasses human understanding, guard and keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus in faith now and until we reach shore. Amen.